Hello and welcome to Beth Rigby Interviews, where I speak to influential figures who have something to say about the world today and how it's changing. This week, I'm in conversation with the actor Liam Neeson. From powerful roles such as Michael Collins and Oscar Schindler to more recent action work, we reflect on a career that spanned over 6 decades. And we'll hear about his upcoming thriller Marlowe, the 100th film he's made.
I hear that you are looking for someone.
We're all looking for someone.
I'll pay you 1,000 if you find him for me.
The puzzle has many pieces. I don't know what you're gonna find.
I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm not afraid to take you with me. I do like this thing about not being afraid. Well, you should be.
Liam Neeson there on the big screen, but he started his career on stage back home in Northern Ireland at a time of fear and uncertainty. We'll hear how acting provided Neeson a lifeline growing up during the Troubles. And hear a message of defiance after the recent shooting of a police officer in Omagh. Did it make you fear that the peace process was becoming ruptured?
No. I did think there's a few cowboys out there. The peace process is here to stay. It is.
Lots more on that issue to come, including some interesting thoughts on the possibility of seeing a united Ireland in his lifetime. But I started with that major milestone in Neeson's career. Liam, we're speaking to you ahead of the release of Marlowe. It's your 100th film. You've clocked up more films than you've been alive, the years you've been alive. It's quite something. It's an incredible milestone for any actor. How does it feel to hit that number?
Kind of unbelievable. You know, someone told me this a few months ago. You know, Marlowe's, that's your 100th film. It says it couldn't be. It says, yeah, it is. And some nights I lie in bed and try and think of them, you know. I get to maybe 75, that's about it. So, there's a few documentaries in there too that I narrated.
It is an incredible work rate, though.
Yeah, I guess it is. Look, I've been so lucky, seriously, from day one. And sometimes I nip myself because of my luck, you know.
I'm going to get into your other films later, but just quickly, which of your 100, can you pick a favourite, or is that an impossible question?
There's a few, and for different reasons, you know. Michael Collins, I'm still very attached to, not least because it took 12, 13 years for Neil Jordan to get the money to make it, because there was a war going on in the north of Ireland, you know. And Schindler's List too. Not so much for my acting, but I thought Stephen made quite an extraordinary film. Brilliant film. Really, really extraordinary. And The Grey, I finished one last year called Thug, for a wonderful Norwegian director, Hans Peter Moland, whom I'd worked with before. I think that's going to be a good film. I'm a hitman who's suffering from a brain disease. The old days it was called being punchy, you know, boxers got it. So that was interesting to play, you know. Oh, it's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. But in your latest film, you play the character Philip Marlowe, and the famous detective created by Roman Chandler. And it's a character that's been played before by some big Hollywood greats, such as Humphrey Bogart. Do you look at how other people have done it while you prepare, or do you not do that? I've watched, in preparation I watched maybe, certainly more than 10 film noir movies. John Garfield, Alan Ladd, Mr. Bogart, of course, Robert Mitchum. Elliot Gould played an extraordinary one for 1973, The Long Goodbye. Robert Altman movie, terrific film. So I watched them for a bit of inspiration, and you know, Robert Mitchum played it as Robert Mitchum, and Bogart played it as Bogart. I thought, well, I'm going to play it as Liam Neeson.
Why'd you raise the possibility that Peterson is alive when I so clearly saw him dead?
Someone may have seen him recently in the street.
And where was this, supposedly?
I can't tell you.
Goodbye, Mr. Marlowe. I'm sorry that it was ultimately uninteresting to talk to you. But I do like this thing that you have about not being afraid when you should be.
I'll see myself out.
It's your fourth film with Irish director Neil Jordan. It's a working relationship, stretches back 4 decades, and it's seen you in high-profile roles such as Michael Collins, the revolutionary who fought for Irish independence. What do you put the success of the partnership between you and Neil down to?
Well, I met Neil when we were shooting John Boorman's Excalibur, 1979, 1980, I think it was. And Neil was commissioned by John to make a documentary of the making of it, you know. So that's when I first really kind of got to know Neil. And, excuse me. Yeah, it's been over 40 years. And he's lovely, Neil. We have a kind of shorthand language, you know. We don't intellectualize a part or a scene, you know. We just have a shorthand language. We just get on, and I think he's a remarkable director and a remarkable writer too, and quite a good jazz pianist as well. You know, we just get on. You know, I get him, I think, and I think he gets me.
And he gets you, and that makes it work in terms of the writing and the parts and the way you put the films together.
Yeah, I think so. Stephen has made 11, 12 films with Neil, you know. But 4, we're planning another one, hopefully, at the end of this year, about a fictitious escape from Rikers Island in New York, which is an infamous prison. In fact, it's so infamous they're going to knock it down, I believe, in the next 4 or 5 years.
So you've got another project.
Yeah, hopefully.
Never stopped, do you? Going back to Schindler's List, which I mean, it won an Oscar. You were...
6 or 7?
Yeah, it won Best Picture. And you were shortlisted, weren't you? You won an Oscar nomination for your performance.
I was nominated, yeah.
That must have felt great, huh?
It did. Yeah, it did. I have thoughts about my own performance in that, but Stephen made an extraordinary film, I thought.
But you've talked about it as a life-changing experience, that film.
It was life-changing in lots of ways.
And quite traumatising as well, you said. So you must have lived it a bit, no?
Maybe a couple of scenes. I felt, oh, I'm okay on that one. With Rafe and a couple with Ben Kingsley, you know. I thought Rafe was extraordinary. Ben was wonderful too. But yeah, there was a traumatic moment. I may have told you before, or told your channel before, but my first day we were actually at the gates of Auschwitz, and the World Jewish Congress did not give Steven Spielberg permission to shoot in Auschwitz. Here's the guy that made Jaws, E.T. There's no way is he going to touch, are we going to allow him in the gates of Auschwitz to tell a story? So the art department very cleverly recreated the inside of Auschwitz, outside Auschwitz, outside the gates. And I remember that first morning, it was so bitterly cold. It was dark, it was about 6 a.m. And I was wrapped up in a big fur coat and stuff, ready to do my little scene. And I was outside the fencing, and I was looking at all the huts that are still there, you know. And Branko Lustig, God rest him, he's dead now, but he was one of the producers, and he came up and said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, Branko, yeah, a little bit cold, but you know." And we were looking at the huts, and he pointed to a hut. He said, "That's the hut I was in." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, that's the hut I was in when I was 5, 6 years of age." I lost it. My knees just went, you know. This is real, you know. It was traumatic. For me it was, yeah. I thought, oh my God, my heart started pumping, you know.
But I mean, that's awful story, and that that must have been hard to
And I'd never, for Schindler's, I didn't want to read. There's so many books written on the Holocaust, you know. I avoided them because in those years, this character may not have known about that stuff, you know. And after the film wrapped, I still read Holocaust literature, you know. There's so much. But then I didn't.
But that film it still has a vital message for today, doesn't it?
I think it does.
You know, at a time when far-right ideologies appear to be on the rise once more, it's a very pertinent film.
Absolutely.
That tells the story, or one of the many stories of the Holocaust, in a way that is accessible to people and endures, right? So.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this Vladimir Putin guy is like evil personified. I think. I really do believe that. We all have to be on our. We all have to watch people like that. But Putin is, he's evil. Evil.
You started your acting career on stage back home in Northern Ireland,
Sure, yeah.
And you performed during the Troubles. You lived through Bloody Sunday.
Sure.
What was that experience like?
It was, I'll tell you, I'll be very honest, it was a mixture of joy, of getting to become a professional actor, and to be working at the Lyric Theatre in Belfast. And those days, we were doing a play every 4 weeks, you know. And, but there were a couple of nights where the theatre would get a telephone call and to be told there's a bomb, and we'd have to go out onto the street with the audience, and the soldiers came in and searched, and after maybe an hour say, okay, you can go back in again. So we'd go in and resume the play. That happened twice when I was there. So it was dangerous, but I guess because of my age and because I loved what I was doing, I was just in a bubble.
And presumably,
you know what I mean?
because you grew up in that atmosphere of violence, you were. It was just something you lived with.
We did, and there was an army barracks at the end of the street too, and was used to hearing gunshots on a Saturday. The troops were practicing on the rifle range, you know. Yeah, when I look back on it, I think, my gosh. And hitchhiking, when I was working in this bottling plant in my hometown, I used to hitchhike up to Belfast 2-3 times a week to rehearse a play. I mean, crazy, just crazy. But I was in that youthful bubble that I'm going to be all right, you know.
For Ulster, it's been 5 years of funerals. This one was for 2 Protestant brothers killed in a week when there were no less than 10 sectarian murders.
On the last Sunday in January, Catholic civil rights marchers defied a government ban on parades and came into violent conflict with British troops in the centre of Londonderry.
The aftermath of a proxy bomb, twisted and tangled metal bearing testament to the force of the blast. Metal flung at speed becoming shrapnel, causing fatal and serious injury to the dozen or so police and soldiers on duty here.
The RUC said tonight that no one should underestimate the seriousness of the current troubles. Northern Ireland was now experiencing rioting on a scale not seen for many years.
Belfast, Birmingham, Brighton, Enniskillen, Shankill, Greysteel. 3,500 people were murdered during the Troubles.
Growing up in Northern Ireland, like for many people, the Troubles, they might not have grown up living through that time.
Sure.
What was it like living through that time? Did you live in fear, or did you it was just part of your life?
It was part of my life. I did get a rude awakening January 1972. I was coming from a physics class in Queen's University, and I was walking up to the halls of residence, and I was suddenly surrounded by like 100 students, all looking at me going, scab, 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 scab. And I thought, what have I done? Again, I was just in my little cocoon, my bubble. Anyway, when I go back to the Ulster residence, I turned on the news or something and heard about the bloody Sunday in Derry, you know. I felt ashamed, I'll be honest. I thought, I have to learn something about the history of my country here, you know, because I was ignorant, you know.
And did you go and...
I did, yeah.
Was it a political awakening, if you like?
It was a political awakening. It was in many ways, you know. And reading subsequent murders and horrors that happened 2.5 miles away from Queen's University. But when I was there, 1971, 72, you know, you think, oh my God.
And you've actually...
But Good Friday Agreement, 25 years, and that was Northern Ireland, and for bitter, bitter enemies to ultimately come together and make an agreement with the help of America, of course, the Clintons. It is quite an extraordinary achievement, you know.
They had talked through the night in 1998. An unthinkable compromise hung in the balance.
I'm pleased to announce that the two governments and the political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
Do you remember that? Do you remember where you were when that was all signed and that event?
Yeah, I was, it was 98, yeah. Kind of remember, I was certainly living in America, you know, but I had come over to Ireland. We were working on, started shooting Michael Collins, I believe. And there was just a feeling in the air, you know, of change. And change for good.
And change for good.
Yeah.
But you have spoken in the past about some of the experiences of growing up in that tense and violent atmosphere. And you've spoken about you and your three sisters all suffering from PTSD from some of these experiences.
I guess we did.
Does it still manifest itself for you?
I don't think so. But it took a long time for my three sisters and myself to kind of talk about a neighbour's tragedy and violence committed against certain neighbours in our street. And it's like, wow. But I think we did. My sisters and I both did suffer from PTSD, I think, yeah.
Because you were Catholic.
Sure.
You were growing up in a Protestant
yeah,
part
but
of town.
But it was there was no reflection of that in my life, you know. There really wasn't. I had a good schooling. I was very aware of an us and them situation, you know. Certainly when it came to the 12th of July and orange marches and stuff like that. But as a kid, we joined in them, you know. It was a fun day, you know. Kind of reminds me, actually, of Derry Girls, a TV show. These kids growing up and being youthful and talking about boys and girls and the way teenagers do, you know, and yet surrounded by this violence. Army trucks and bombs going off and stuff, and it's quite a remarkable show. And my sisters and I were kind of in that boat too, I think. I was saved because, I had no interest in joining. I knew nothing about the politics, but I was an amateur boxer, did plays at school. That kept me out of trouble, you know. It
was your escapism, or it just kept you off the streets and it kept you away from getting drawn into...
Yeah, it certainly did, yeah. And many boxing events, tournaments I had, I know some of those kids from Belfast are no longer with us because they died tragically in the Troubles, you know. I can think of 3 or 4 of them, you know.
Mm. But you did, I mean, that wasn't your life, and you...
It wasn't my life, no.
You had these two passions, and one of them you've turned into an incredibly successful career. And you just talked about the Good Friday Agreement and the 25th anniversary, and, you know, President Biden, we think, is going to come is going to come over to mark this really important anniversary. But last month, the Northern Ireland police officer John Caldwell was shot in Omagh. It happened in front of children.
Yes, I know.
What did you think of it? Did it make you fear that the peace process was becoming ruptured?
No. I did think there's a few cowboys out there still want to believe in the old IRA or what have you, you know. The peace process is here to stay. It is. Everybody wants it. Certainly in the north of Ireland. But you always get that, don't you? You always get a few cowboys, you know?
You do, but I wonder too what you think about this, whether some of the, Brexit and some of the tensions around post-Brexit trading in Northern Ireland and some of the divisions that all caused or brought things to bubble up to the surface again. Do you ever think sort of UK politicians, our own politicians, have been responsible for stoking divisions?
You're opening a big book there, you know. I mean, what, 3, 4 prime ministers in the past 3 years or something? I don't know where to begin with that one. I try and follow what's happening politically, and I'm from the north of Ireland, of course, very proud to be from there, because I think it gave me a work ethic too. Protestants and Catholics, there's a wonderful thing about Northern Irish people. They do have this wonderful work ethic, you know. But on the world stage, when you see what's happening in Ukraine and stuff, and there's a politician talking about we have to get our sausages in from Britain into Belfast, it's like, oh, come on, seriously, is this where we're at?
There are bigger things.
There's bigger things, but I know the sausages are important in the scheme of things, and it's being resolved.
Well, yeah, and hopefully the power sharing arrangement will get going again in Stormont, because it's important, isn't it?
They have to get back to work.
Yeah.
They're representing the people of the north of Ireland. Get back to work. You're drawing the salary still.
I'd move on from this, but just one more thing. Do you think, I know you've lived in America for a long time, but when you go home, can you imagine Ireland reuniting, the reunification of Ireland in your lifetime, or do you think...
I think it'll happen.
Do you?
I think it will, and I think Britain will be pleased. You know, they don't have to put 50 billion into the Northern Ireland Exchequer every year. I think that's what it costs now, you know. I think it could happen, yeah. But, everybody has to be appeased. The Protestants in the north of Ireland have a strong voice. I hear them, I know where they're coming from, and they have to be, respected if there's going to be a united Ireland. Their voice has to be heard, and they have to be represented if a united Ireland comes about.
Well, and, symbolically it'd be a very big moment when President Biden comes over. I think the Clintons might come over. It'd be...
I know when the Clintons came over, it changed their lives, personally and politically.
In what way?
It had such an effect on them. Walking up the Shankill Road, holding hands, and seeing how the people were joyous that they were being seen on the world stage.
Yeah.
Protestants and Catholics, and it was momentous. I know that for a fact from the Clintons.
Have they talked to you about that?
I spoke to President Bill,
Yeah.
A number of years ago, yeah. It had a big effect on them, Which was cool. Yeah.
Well, it kind of put the people of Northern Ireland and the Irish peace process in the heart of American presidents and successive American presidents, with President Biden as well.
Exactly, and I forgot to mention George Mitchell, the ex-senator, who is really responsible for galvanising that peace process,
Thank you so much for talking to me. I really enjoyed it.
Likewise.
Liam Neeson there on his career in film. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation as much as I did. And if you scan this QR code on screen now, you can watch all of our interviews online and all the previous episodes of the show. And if you scan the QR code on screen now, you can listen to the Beth Rigby Interviews podcast. Each week, I take a look at the highlights of my interviews, and there's some extra bits and pieces in there too. This week, we're talking about the budget. That's on the Sky News app or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, that's all for today's show. Thank you to my guest, Liam Neeson, and thank you for watching.